Right, so we are 7 minutes past the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be taking on the Speedrun Ethereum Challenge 1, and that is building a decentralized staking app. Now, I'm going to head over to the Speedrun Ethereum website so we can take a look at it. So, there's a couple challenges when you head over to speedrunethereum.com. The last month we had the simple NFT challenge, which is challenge 0, and this month, February, we're going to do challenge 1. And this is all under the program that we're doing in P2E Inferno called the Sepolia Odyssey, which is really designed to get people to learn about how to use the blockchain and learn different types of concepts in a risk-free way by practicing on the Sepolia testnet. Now, the Sepolia testnet has different versions for different blockchains. For now, what I mean by that is there's different layer two networks on Ethereum, such as Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, and ZK Sync. And these different layer twos, they have their own test networks where developers can build applications and test it in a risk-free way where they don't have to risk real ether or real value. And so this testnet is a place where you can experience the same things that you would experience on the live blockchain, but in a way that you don't have to spend real money because you will be using testnet tokens. And so the Sepolia Odyssey is just a way for us to try out different types of applications and use different decentralized applications that have been built and tools and all that sort of thing with testnet tokens so that you would get the real world experience, but in a way that you don't have to risk any tokens. And some of these things are actually quite expensive for you to play with. For instance, if you wanted to like swap, you would need to have some tokens for you to go to Uniswap and swap. And so if you don't have the resources or the funds to do swapping, then you wouldn't really know what that is. You wouldn't be able to swap. And so with the Sepolia Odyssey, you can get some testnet tokens. You can go to Uniswap and you can swap tokens and know exactly what it feels like, how it is done in a way that you get to experience it directly as a user. And also, maybe you want to buy an NFT, you've never done that before. With real money, but you wouldn't be spending any money. And so these these things are designed to help you community members get the feeling of using the blockchain and understanding it from an experience point of view. And so right now we are beginning with the builders, and we're looking at building these different applications that will give you some basic fundamental understanding of how you can build different types of applications on Ethereum, because these speedrun Ethereum challenges, they will teach you about the basic building blocks that you can combine and build yourself a killer outstanding application on the blockchain, from using an NFT to staking. And then there's a token vendor, there's a dice game, there's a DEX, which is a decentralized exchange. And then from that point on, it is locked. And so you need to connect your address, your wallet, and then you need to be part of the build guild, so that once you've completed these challenges, which is challenge 4, then you get to unlock the next ones, which is what we're trying to do. And things get even more interesting. There's a stable coins, there's prediction markets, and deploy to layer two. There's a lot of exciting things that's down the road for us to do. And then we're going to be really unlocking some of the exciting prizes and fun games, bounties, and quests that we will be doing. So right now, some of you might be wondering where are the prizes, where are the bounties, what's happening to all the quests? Well, just stay tuned. I know your blood is boiling right now, like hot water that they want to use and do Gary, but calm down, okay? We're going to be really getting into it. It's kind of like when a movie is starting. Sometimes the action is not in the beginning, you get into it and then you get all the action. I know that there's some movies that starts with like gunshots, fighting, explosions, but this isn't that. This is the type of movie that takes you in slowly and eases you into the good stuff. So with that said, let's get right into it and start with the building. So I'm going to go ahead and click on quests, and it's going to take you to the challenge page where there's the instructions. I'm going to zoom in so this is a little bit bigger. And by the way, I am recording after the workshop. But right now, the way to do this speedrun Ethereum challenges is pretty simple. It is designed to help you do it without a lot of stress. So all you need to do is click in and then you read the instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud. A superpower of Ethereum is allowing the builder to create a simple set of rules that an adversary.
Like we can barely hear you. We sent messages already in the chat.
Oh wow. That's that's really crazy. How about now? Okay, let's try to figure out what this is about. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, so I just got some feedback. There's some problems with my microphone. Is it better now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yes, clearly.
Okay, so wait, let me get this straight. Did you not hear any of the things I said before, or it just kind of happened in the middle of what the speech?
Yeah, it happened in the meeting. We were able to hear you to an extent, but later it just went off like blank.
Okay, that was really weird. I'm going to try to see if because I had my headset on, and that was so that the audio would be, clear for me when you guys are speaking or anything, and everything seemed fine. So I heard this really weird sound, and so let me try it one more time before I figure out what else I'm going to do if it doesn't work. So how about now? Is it still good? Okay, perfect. So back to the Speedrun Ethereum challenge. So a superpower of Ethereum is allowing you, the builder, to create a simple set of rules that an adversarial group of players can use to work together. In this challenge, you create an application where users can coordinate a group funding effort. If the users cooperate, the money is collected in a second smart contract. If they defect, the worst that can happen is everyone gets their money back. The users only have to trust the code. So build a staker.sol contract that collects ETH from numerous addresses using a payable stake function and keeps track of balances. After some deadline, it if it has at least some threshold of ETH, it sends it to an example external contract and triggers the complete action, sending the full balance. If not enough ETH is collected, allow users to withdraw. And building the front end to display the information and UI is just as important as writing the code. The goal is to deploy the contract and the app to allow anyone to stake using your app. Use a stake address UN65256 event to list all stakes. So basically, let me just run through this with a little explanation. So what it's saying is you build a staker.sol contract, which is the main staking contract, and that contract is going to collect ether from a number of different people, and it what happens is there's a stake function that everybody calls, and that keeps track of the contract is also going to keep track of everybody's balance. So if somebody sends 5 or some other person sends 2 and someone sends zero point 0.1, it keeps track of who sends what. And then there's a specific deadline that after that time, it checks if the total amount of ether that the contract has received is up to a certain amount. So let's say we're trying to do a fundraising for 5 ether in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks is the deadline. The threshold is 5. So if after 2 weeks the amount of ether that it has received is not up to 5, it's going to send it back, send everybody's balance back to them. But if it's up to what we need, which is 5, after the deadline, which is 2 weeks, then it's going to transfer the money to wherever we wanted it to go. Let's assume that the contribution was for an orphanage or for whatever. When it checks that the target was met within the deadline, then it gets sent to an external contract, which is what the external contract example external contract represents. And so building the next thing is talking about how important the building the front end is. It's not just writing smart contracts, but you need to be able to build a front end so users can interact with your smart contract. And the stake event allows the smart contract, allows the front end to detect whenever an event in the smart contract happens, and it displays it to the users to see that, hey, something has happened. Now we are going to be moving on, and it says, note, if you use named arguments in your event, example, event stake address, indexed staker, uint 256 amount, you need to update this package, this particular file, to reference events parameters by their names instead of numeric indices. So we're going to go through this to like really see what that looks like. The final deliverable is deploying a dApp that lets users send Ether to a contract and stake if the conditions are met. And then yarn versel, which is a command, your app to a public web server, submit the URL to speedrunethereum.com, meet other builders working on this challenge and get help in the Telegram group. So to get started, there's a bunch of dependencies that you need to have installed. First, you need to have at least Node 18 LTS version, Yarn version 1 or 2, and Git. So if you have maybe Node 20 or 22, you'll be fine, but you need to have at least Node 18. So to get started, you need to copy this code like this, Control C, and head over to your terminal. I have it here. So I am going to ls and cd. Okay, yeah, my documents. So we're gonna cd projects, and I'm going to paste the code here and hit enter to clone that repo and just like initialize the project. This isn't exactly cloning the repo because it's not like a Git repository. It's a scaffolded command to initialize the project using Scaffold it2 framework, which is a tool for building decentralized applications fast. It's got a ton of ready-made components that you can just plug and play into your applications and get started without having to think about building and connecting all those things together, from like a wallet connect to balances, and it's also plugged into the Ethereum name service. So if you paste an address that has an ENS name, it just resolves and tells you the ENS name or of that address. And so there's a lot of good components that Scaffold it comes packed with. So when you're building smart contracts, it just allows you to build really, really fast. So that's the tool that I use to build all of my applications because it's really, really good. And so this little command here is just to initialize the Speedrun Ethereum Challenge 1 application. So we're just going to wait for all these things to get done. And then we'll be moving on. So does anybody have any question at this point? All right. I think someone raised their hand. You can unmute yourself and speak if you're comfortable. And I'll be looking at the chat now. Oh, whoa, you're not seeing my screen. Is that still the case? You still can't see my screen. I didn't share my screen. Wow. You see, you guys need to be able to unmute yourself and speak, because there's no way that I can be presenting and reading the chats at the same time. Can't believe that all this time my screen wasn't being shared and I didn't know. Okay, still waiting for this. So again, I reiterate that, guys, if you are trying to get my attention when I'm presenting or speaking, do not be shy. Unmute yourself and like interrupt me and say, "Hey, this is going on. Hey, I'm having this problem or whatnot." Because if you leave it in the chat, I probably won't notice, because I can be in two places at once. You know. So I don't know if you're able to see my screen now. Samuel, can you see my screen now? All right. So this is still taking a bit of time, and it looks like there's no questions from anybody yet. So I will ask though, Did you get to try the Speedrun Ethereum Challenge Zero, Samuel? Did you try that? Did you get a chance to try it?
The last call, I asked if we can use Foundry, and the only option I think for the speedrun Ethereum is ads.
Okay, yeah, it's actually just hard hat for now. And I'm curious if you do, like, you don't know how to use hard hat or you're not interested in using hard hat. Like, what is the problem?
I don't really know how to use hard hat, and I can't write test on hard hat because I've been using Foundry. So, like switching over to hard hat means I have to like learn a new tool from the beginning.
Isn't that what you're doing right now? I mean, I totally hear you, like I feel your pain, but I think it's something that is worth learning and doing because if you're already a blockchain developer, you might have to work on a project that is hard hat based. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to work on this project because it's hard hat and I do Foundry. So I will tell a little story for myself personally. I started with hard hat. So everything that I did for like since 2021 up until 2024, it was all hard hat. I'd never touched Foundry. And it was last year I just decided, you know what, I should look into smart contract security. And Foundry is the framework where you would use when you want to do a lot of those smart contract security testing and fuzzing with a lot of things. There's a lot of tools that comes baked with Foundry that allows you to do some cool stuff. So Foundry is great, right? And I had to learn it. So that's what the developer journey is about, you know, learning new tools and having an open mind to do it. So maybe this is the time for you to like dip your toes into hard hat and slowly like work your way up without any pressure, you know, there's really no pressure for you to like do anything. So it's a good way for you to just start getting some hard hat knowledge. What do you say?
Uh, I'll attempt it. I'll attempt it. Though
Oh,
I'm
that
not like done learning Foundry itself, so but I'll attempt harder.
yeah, I can understand that, you know, it's kind of like you're still dipping, you're still trying to figure out uh Foundry and then they want you to start going into something new as well. It can be overwhelming. So, yeah, I totally
Exactly.
feel you. I totally feel you. Yeah, you take it easy, you pace yourself and see how it goes. No pressure. So it looks like the package has installed. So we're going to there's some instructions on the terminal. You guys can see my terminal too. Can you guys see the terminal?
No, we are seeing the Ethereum speedrun screen, not the terminal.
Okay, let me see. All right.
Yeah, I can see the terminal.
Let me try to set this to just show the entire screen so I don't have to keep switching this every single time. All right. Can you see that too? Can you still see it?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So right now there's a few instructions on the terminal that says one, you can start your chain, your local development chain with Yarn chain. And first you have to CD into this folder. You can even copy this from the terminal and just like paste it here. Okay, let's see why it's telling. Oh, we're already inside of the folder, so we don't need to do the CD. So we can just type yarn chain to start our local development chain. And we're going to need a new terminal. So what I will do is I'm going to Control C out of this and do code so that I can have multiple terminals. So this opens VS Code in this folder. And I've split my terminal into two, and I'm going to go ahead and start the local development chain. All right, so what I'm just doing is I'm following the instructions here: yarn chain, yarn start, yarn deploy. But you don't necessarily have to do that. It's better to like follow the Speedrun Ethereum website and go step by step, but it's pretty much the same thing. So many things on my screen. So the first step is yarn chain. The next thing is yarn deploy and then yarn start. So it's exactly what the terminal was saying. So head back here, yarn start, and then you split it and open another terminal where we're going to do our yarn deploy, which is going to deploy our smart contracts to the local chain. So just hit enter, yarn deploy, and head back to Speedrun Ethereum and see what else are we going to do. So we've done yarn start. So next thing is open HTTP localhost 3000 to see. Let's make sure that the contract has deployed, and you can see it has. So we're going to head over here in a new tab, hit enter, and let it open up our front end. Then we come back here and see what else is it asking us to do. So it says rerun yarn deploy whenever you want to deploy new contracts to the front end. If you haven't made any changes, if you haven't made any contract changes, you can run yarn deploy reset for completely fresh deploy. Now you're ready to edit your smart contracts, staker.so in packages, hard hats, contracts. So let's go to that folder, packages, on the left side, hard hats, click down, contracts, and we're looking for the file staker.so. So there's a bunch of comments that's going to ask us for what we need to do. So collect funds in a payable stake function and track individual balances with a mapping. So first thing that we want to do is we want to create a mapping for balances. And so we're going to come here and say mapping, and we're mapping an address to a uint 256, and we're gonna have it public balances, and don't forget your semicolon. So we basically have created our mapping to track balances. And so we want to come back to this comment and says collect funds in a payable stake function and track individual balances with a mapping. So what that means is we're gonna like come below the comments and create a function, call it stake as was instructed, and we're going to make it public, payable. Payable means the function can accept ETH, and so now once we do this, we want to basically update the balances with the msg.value that the stake function is going to uh, come with. So when you make a function payable, it means it can accept ether, and that ether that the function is accepting can be accessed with the msg.value. So that way, what we're going to do now, we're going to say the message.sender, which is the person calling the function, get that person's address. That's what that means. And then we're going to do the plus equal to msg.value. And I don't think we have defined our event yet. So, but let's go ahead and see what the instruction says. Yes, so first checkpoints, mapping. So also track a constant threshold at 1 ether. So we need to create this constant u in 256 public constant threshold and assign it to 1 ether. So we're also going to come here and say um u in 256 public constant, call it threshold 1 ether, and the next thing is the stake function and test it with. So if we look here now, the front end has loaded. It's a simple UI. It just has a bunch of things here explaining what the challenge is about, and then there's a staker UI. But what we want to pay attention to right now is this little tab called debug contracts, which allows you to interact with your smart contracts directly like you were in a like block explorer. So if you were to go to something like Etherscan and you're interacting with your smart contract, this debug contracts tab allows you to do something like that. So back to this, because this is our source of truth to figure out what we are trying to do. So let's come back and look at up here something about the event. So we're just going to grab this like so, because sometimes devs be lazy, so we don't really type much. All right, so that is the stake And now we can emit the stake events, and we can say msg.sender and msg.value. I wanted to add that if we're not able to complete this within the time, I will have to leave the rest for you guys to round up as an assignment, because I believe that we should be able to complete this, uh, which is the reason why we're doing this, so that you would be able to like do this on your own. The idea is not to do everything for you, but to show you how to be able to do this on your own. So you Okay, next thing is write your stake function and test it with the debug contract. So since we've made some changes to the contract, we want to rerun run the yarn deploy
I
command.
can't hear you.
Okay. Uh, can you hear me now? Something keeps happening to this mic and I don't know what that is. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
What about now? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. And thanks for letting me know. That's what I want, so I don't keep talking and you guys can hear me. So I was just saying though that this is the debug contracts tab, and whenever you make changes to your smart contracts, you want to like rerun the yarn deploy so that the latest changes would be reflected in the smart contracts. Because if you come here, there's those public variables, state variables that we created in the contracts. You can't see it uh, because there's nothing, including the staker function, because there's nothing when we deployed it. But now we've added this mapping, and so we should be able to see that, and as well as our public staker function. So let's go ahead and redeploy the contract. All right. So head back here. This is the staker. So let's wait for the UI to update. It should look like this, balances and this. So, okay, we're all out of patience. So we're going to refresh it manually. Click on staker. And now we have balances and this just as it is displayed here. So what we want to do is we want to grab funds from our faucet, which gives us like local funds. So if you notice, I didn't connect any wallets. I have MetaMask, but I didn't connect it. That's because Scaffold, it comes with a burner wallet that allows you to interact with your application when you're on your local test net, when you're on your local development environment. So you can easily copy that address and put it here and check, and you see that it has no balance. So now we want to stake. And how do we do it? We want to, let's say we want to put in 0 0.1 ETH. But if you put it like this, it's not going to work because it needs the value in way. So look at this little button here. This is a component from Scaffold it. If you hit this, it's going to convert that number to the way value. And then you can do that and boom, the money has basically been sent. And if you look at the smart contract here, over here, you find that the balance has been updated, like it now has a balance of 0.18. And if you check our mapping, you find that this address now has this balance in the contract. So that's good. We are on track. So we go down to the next thing. This is talking about the faucet. If you need more funds from the faucet, click on grab fund from faucet, which we just did. And if you need more, you can always click on this little button and it's going to top it off just like that. You see now we've got 1.8. So next thing, you need to troubleshoot your code. If you import hard hat console to your contract, you can call the console log right in your Solidity uh, code. The output will appear in your yarn chain terminal. So let's see, how would we do this? Let's try to see, because it's important to be able to debug your code. So I suppose, oh, it's already imported for us. And let's say we wanted to just log something, we can just do console.log, I guess. Balances. I'm pretty sure we would have some more, some better things to log, but this is what we're testing out with. What in the world? That's all I want to do. I don't think this is working out quite well. So let's move it into this function. Yeah. Okay. This should make more sense, but let's see why it's complaining. So let's go back here and see how it's used. Well, this is how it's supposed to be used, which isn't quite okay. So it just was not supposed to be the last thing after. It's supposed to be before the emit statement. And now we should be able to see it on this part of our terminal, which is what it was saying in the yarn chain part. So if what happens is if first we need to like we need to redeploy the contract. And what happens now is anytime somebody calls this function, you would be able to see the address logged to the console here. So let's just quickly test that and see. We're going to go ahead and switch this and say we're doing 0.3. Searching through these logs to find what we're looking for. This is a side quest. It's not necessarily important to what we're doing. What are we actually logging? The balances of the message sender. So we are supposed to get an amount, a number. All right. Hmm. Is that it? I don't think so. Okay, we're not going to spend too much time on that because there's not a lot of time. But back to the questions, do you see the balance of the staker contract go up when we stake? Yes. Is your balance currently tracked? Yes. Do you see the events in the stake events tab? Well, we didn't check for that. So let's see stake events. Okay, so the answer to that is no, we don't see the events in the stake events tab. So now that's something that is something that we should look at because it is part of our our like objectives to have that. So let's head over to the stake UI first to see. So total stakes. Let's head back here. For some, okay, it looks like there's nothing here in the balance. So let's do it one more time. We're going to hit 0.33 and yep. All right. So now the balance has gone up. That means the transaction has occurred. So let's check it and boom, we have it in the stake, all staking events. We have it here. So do you see the events in the stake events tab? Check. We do. And let's also check if that's our log to the console is there when you call the function. And yes, this is the console log. It's here as well. So everything looks good. Next thing is we head back here and see what's the next thing. Everything looks good. Next thing is state machine or timing. So state machine, think of your smart contract like a state machine. First, there's a stake period. Then if you have gathered the threshold worth of ETH, there's a success that there is a success state. Or we go into a withdraw state to let users withdraw their funds. Set a deadline of block.timestamp plus 30 seconds. So this right here is telling you exactly what you need to do. You can either copy it or you can type it. I am just going to copy it because we don't have a lot of time. And paste that there. So we created a public variable called deadline and we set it to the time that was um, given. And then we're going to redeploy the smart contract to update the latest changes. And let's head back to the instruction and see. So smart contracts can't execute automatically. You always need to have a transaction execute to change state. Because of this, you would need to have an execute function that anyone can call just once after the deadline has expired. So what that means is we need to create a function and test it with debug contract tab. So what does this contract actually do? Check the example contracts for bool. Check the example external contract dot sol for the bool you can use to test if it has been completed or not, but do not edit it. It can slow the auto grading. So basically, we don't need to edit this, is what it's saying. But So um, basically, we want to create an execute function. Let's look at the external contract. What does it say? Okay. All right. So the execute function can do one thing. If the deadline has passed, it can call the external contract complete function. So let's quickly do that in the little time that we have. We're going to create function execute, and it's public. Anybody can call it. And so it's going to check if it's obviously blocked the timestamp, which is checking the current timestamp is greater than the deadline, meaning the deadline has passed. Let me see if the deadline has passed and the threshold is met. All right, and the threshold is met, and address this. So we're setting a conditional that if the time has passed the deadline and the balance of the contract is above or equal to the threshold, then we can call example external contract. All right, let's go. All right, so calling that function doesn't need anything fancy. It's just that. And there we go. I think we have our execute function. Just to make sure it's correct, we look at the instruction. If the deadline has passed the threshold, if the deadline has passed and the threshold is met, it should call this, which is external contract to complete. Oh, this function actually should have it should send the balance of the contract to this function. It should send it to the external contract. And that means we need to actually edit this to do this as well. Value. All right, so now we're good. I think we're good now. Everything is okay. So we are going to deploy this one more time. So there's still a bunch more things to do to really wrap this challenge up, and I'm going to leave that for you guys to complete for the rest of the challenge. We've taken off a bunch of the things that need to be done. So write your execute function and test it with the debug contracts. So now we'll come back over here. For some reason, this is taking unnecessarily long to load. It's on my local. It should be loading quite fast, but here we are. So you guys have to bear with me while this takes forever to open up the debug contracts. In the meantime, do we have any questions so far? Anyone? All right. I saw you raising your hand, Samuel.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
The execute function, are we the ones that are going to be calling it, or is like Ethereum that is who is calling the execute function?
That is a great question. That is a great question. So the execute function can be called by anyone. That's the design. And I think there's somewhere in the instruction too they mentioned it because the reason is it's supposed to be open to anybody to call as long as the condition is met. So if a group of people are agreeing to do something, we don't want a situation where only one person can call that function. So it is designed so anybody can call it. And what the code says is the function can only be called if the conditions are met. So if you look at the code, it's saying this function, if the block.timestamp is past the deadline and this um, the the balance of the staker contract is greater than the threshold, meaning the target was met, then it's going to do this. But I'm sure there's also a part where if it is not, then something else should happen, which obviously is the remaining three comments that's left in the contract, which will be like the assignment. But for what we've done so far, anybody can call the staker the execute function, and as uh, as we will see right now, well, let's just do 0.2 increase and send, and then execute. So let's get over to stake events. So we definitely want to include a condition like something to let the people know that it didn't, like, you can't do this now, like maybe an else, or you can just say revert.
Okay, because the main reason why I was asking was I think somewhere it was written down that if like you call the function, then contract does not have the right amount, everybody will be like refunded their amount. That is why I asked
Yeah,
who is allowed to.
that is, I believe that if we keep reading all the way down, you would see where um state machine and timing. So there's a time left function, including to check how much time is left. And also, uh, you would include some conditions to say this, there's a withdraw function that will be available. So that withdraw function, you would set it so that it will be functional. Look at it. You say use it to protect your execute and withdraw function. So as you go down the challenge, you would continue to see more ways to improve the contract. So right now they say try to create a modifier called not completed. It will check that example external contract is not completed yet. Use it to protect the execute and withdraw function. So what happens is if we come back to this and come to this UI, you see there's an execute and a withdraw. So typically this withdraw function is something that you create in the contract. And what it does is that when if the period if the target is not met within the deadline, if the threshold is not met within the deadline, then this function will become enabled, meaning anybody that have staked can come and click withdraw, and the contract will give them back their balance, meaning the mapping that tracks the balance will check for that user's address and send them back the money that they staked. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, perfect. So we're a little over time. Does anyone have any other question before we call it? And um, once you guys are done with this, if you're trying to attempt the rest of it, you saw the way we did it. We just basically have to follow this step by step, read the instructions and try to follow step by step. That's the way you complete the challenge. Don't try to skip anything because then you might get confused. So where we currently are is at the state machine. We just did this and then we created the execute function. So you follow step by step, and if you run into any challenge, you can leave it in the developer chat, but you need to test yourself to try to complete the rest of it. So if there's no further question, then we'll be calling it a day right here, and I'll be looking forward to having you guys complete the rest of the challenge. Thank you so much for taking the time. Okay, we've got someone raising their hands. All right, let's go. Tressa, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Good evening to all.
Yeah, how are you? Good evening.
Kenny,
Yes, we
yeah,
can hear you.
I'm good. Yeah, I joined a bit late. I wasn't around, and I'm just asking if I can get those this presentation. Where can I get it?
Okay, we will be uploading the video. So the whole session was recorded and we'll be uploading the video to YouTube, and the link will be shared on the group as well so you can watch the whole session.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, you're welcome. Anyone else have any question before we wrap it up? No, 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 no. All right then. Thank you so guys for showing up, and I'll see you next month for the next challenge. And take care. Have a good one.